great support that's given to us by this school district. They let us just kind of take over the place. So on behalf of the Symposium Committee, I want to extend a warm welcome, as I said, to all of you. We're glad that you're here. Our agricultural industry certainly continues to have challenges, certainly with weather, economics, inflationary costs, political regulations, and international conflicts, but we also have great rewards from our bountiful harvests, the successful yields, the research that supports our operations, improved genetics, productive livestock herds, multi-generational family farming operations, and certainly caring communities. But for this Friday night, and for tomorrow's program, Saturday, we encourage you just to sit back and relax and share some laughter, share some common optimism, share some pride, share some information, share some common interest in agriculture, and have a good time together. I still have blurred memories of COVID, and it's just wonderful that we can be out and be together. So I have some neat folks that I want you all to meet at this time. I'll start with an individual. I'll talk about his early age. From an early age, land-grant university extension programs have been an integral part in the life of this gentleman. His name is Dr. Chad Higgins. He's serving as interim vice chancellor in extension and engagement from the University of Missouri. He grew up in a small farm in southeastern Arkansas. He became a 4-H'er as soon as he was old enough to join. The young 4-H'er grew up and he earned a BA degree from Lyon College in Batesville, and a master's degree in Little Rock, and a doctorate in higher education administration from LSU. He's a published author, presenter, successful procurer of grants. Dr. Higgins came to our University of Missouri system in 2020, and he brought with him extensive teaching experiences, mentoring, curriculum development, evaluation experiences, and those were all from his past roles at other universities. So Louisiana State, West Virginia, Idaho State, and Iowa State universities. That extension and research component was an important part of it too. We're so pleased to have this accomplished leader here with us. He's here to bring greetings from our University of Missouri, and I hope that you will welcome our friend, Dr. Chad Higgins.
Well, it is a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to do a welcome. This is a premier event. You know, for 24 years, we can actually say we started this last century. That gives a lot of age to it. That's pretty awesome. No, but it's also 24 years that you can say you've seen a nexus or a meeting, research-based information put in practical terms, made available for anyone to use on the farms, on the ranches. And that's the beauty of what we do at a land-grant university. And I was looking at the program, and I was like, my goodness, so tomorrow you've got the opportunity to hear from people from Iowa State, Nebraska, North Carolina State, Texas A&M, you, missing Idaho. That's a lot of land-grant knowledge coming to a program from all over the nation. And these are global leaders in their field. And they're pairing up with industry leaders as well and partners through this program. And it just really shows the nexus of what happens when you bring in research-based and best practices and make it relevant to you. And so I'll give you a warm welcome on a cool night from the University of Missouri in Columbia. And I would be remiss if I do not say that it's right. And you gave me 85 minutes, right? Oh, 2 minutes. Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't say this before I got off of here. I owe a lot to extension. I owe a lot to land grants. And our farm shared a significant fence line with the University of Arkansas's Ag Experience Station of Livestock. And I got turned on to 4-H by a livestock specialist in Arkansas. And they were associated with the land-grant university at the University of Arkansas there, which was 4.5 hours away from our farm in that state. And that university was right in our backyard, 4.5 hours away. livestock specialist that did that. And so I owe my career to the livestock specialist. And so thank you for all that you do, and thank you for all being here. This is the partnership that keeps things rolling. Our job is to help you to be more profitable. Our job is to help you take better care of your land. So thank you for being here. I hope you take this opportunity to create new networks, meet people that maybe you hadn't seen in a couple of years, and just have a really good time. So welcome to the 24th Annual Symposium. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chad. We do appreciate you, and that's a heart of gratitude that we have for you. Another guest that I wish for you to meet is Mr. Jamie Kurtz. He's the State Grassland Specialist, USDA NRCS. So Jamie is an agronomy graduate of Missouri State University and has worked for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, starting in Cassville, Missouri, and later in the West Plains Field Office. He currently is the Grassland Specialist housed in the State Office in Columbia. Now you'll see his name in various spots in our symposium program because we're working him hard while he's here. He's a presenter in multiple times tomorrow. So Jamie, in little history, Jamie and his father, Ian, are strong proponents of management intensive grazing, and they implement that on their 360-acre cow-calf operation, which is in Howell County. Jamie and his wife, Michelle, are the parents of 2 sons and a daughter. And like many ag production families, they're incorporating that next generation into the farming operation in addition to its good farm labor. Please welcome Mr. Jamie Kurtz.
Well, I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to talk a few minutes. I promised Mr. Conley we would keep this pretty short. So we've been pretty busy in Missouri. Last year we spent approximately $75 million in cost share. Nobody wants to hear about that. But I will tell you that one thing that's near and dear to my heart is we were able to initiate a native forage initiative. Since I'm the grassland specialist, I'm pretty proud of this. We outlaid close to $6.5 million and are scheduled to plant for around 13,000 acres of native forages this year. Another thing that I would like to mention is the committee, one of your members recently retired from us, Tim Clapp, after 35 years, and I think we decided around 24 years on this committee has decided to hang it up. It's my understanding he's going to stay on the committee, but no longer wear the USDA emblem anymore. So he served as the Northeast Missouri Regional Grassland Grazing School Coordinator, Regional Grazing Specialist for Northeast Missouri, and retired as the HARC, or Area Resource Coordinator too. So I'd just like to congratulate him on a job well done, and hope that he keeps up and keeps in touch with us. Thank you.
Okay. Another gentleman that I wish to bring to the podium at this time is Dr. Brian Wiggin. He is a Mizzou alum, bachelor's degree in animal science, master's degree at Auburn, doctorate from Iowa State. He's worked at his Mizzou alma mater since 2007. He was named the director of the Division of Animal Science for the College of Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources. We call that CAFR, in 2021. So, professor in the division, his assignments included teaching, MU extension, research expertise in meat science. Dr. Wiggin is actually a Northeast Missouri native. 2007, he made his way to his home University of Missouri as professor, which enabled him to return to the family farm near Cairo in Randolph County. That's just south and next door to us. In addition to his responsibilities on campus, along with his wife and 3 daughters, they run stocker cattle, raise Southdown and crossbred sheep, meat goats, and have a small milking herd of dairy goats. The family is super active in 4-H and FFA, and they regularly exhibit at many state and national livestock shows. He's a meat scientist and livestock production that's firmly ingrained, I think, in his DNA. The perfect person to be able to bring greetings from the zoo to our livestock symposium. So please join me as we welcome Dr. Reagan.
I have the shortest drive home this evening of all the Mizzou folks because I do just live in the far northeast corner of Randolph County. In fact, my farm is split by the Macon-Randolph County line, so it's nice to know that I have the shortest drive home. It is great to be able to bring welcome from Kaffner and from the Division of Animal Science. I'm going to spend just maybe 1.5 minutes giving you a little bit of an update on what we're doing to engage you as stakeholders in the livestock business. We've been doing some hiring in our division, especially in the extension outreach space. So very recently we hired Dr. Jamie Porter into our state extension beef genetics position, and she joined us in August. And then promptly her family expanded. She had a baby 2 weeks ago, so she's out on maternity leave, but she's a trooper because we're emailing back and forth, and she's like, what can I do here from the house to make sure I'm still getting my job done in beef genetics for the state. And then we both also hired Tiago Martins from Mississippi State in our extension repro beef position as a state specialist. These are two positions that have been open for quite a long while, and we haven't had people out in the state working for stakeholders, so we're very proud to have had the opportunity to support both from extension and from our Dean, Chris Albert and Kaffner, to be able to fill those positions. So it's a good time to be in livestock business in the state of Missouri. I think you've heard that we're deeply ingrained in it in our family. A lot of my labor is starting to leave home. I've got 2 daughters at Mizzou. One's going to graduate soon, and she's going on to law school. The second one is a freshman at Mizzou. They're both in ag business, public policy. I think the second one wants to be a lawyer as well. I'm not real sure how we ended up in that theme. But anyway, that's where we're at. The third one laments the fact that big sisters are off because guess what? She's the chore girl. And last night she came home late from a basketball game. She's a varsity cheerleader. They were at Glasgow at the tournament. When she got back home, she said, Dad, did you get the chores done? I said, I just got home too. So the 2 of us went out there nearly 11 o'clock at night and took care of the sheep, the goats, and the cattle. So it is ingrained in my DNA. Very proud to be a livestock producer from this part of the state. I'm proud to bring you welcome from the University of Missouri. Thank you.
There are some additional guests that I would like to recognize that are seated in the audience tonight, and I would ask these individuals to stand and be recognized, remain standing, and if the audience could hold their applause, we can kind of give them an overall graduate here welcome. We have with us Senator Rusty Black, who is with the 12th Senate District. I think that's Central and Northwest Missouri counties. We have with us Mr. Greg Sharp, State Representative from the 4th District. I think his wife Teresa may be with him. We love that lady. We have Mr. Nick Autoff, who is a staff representative for Josh Hawley, who is very tickled that he's here. He's quite tickled to be here too because his grandpa really would like to hear our corporate wall speaker. So I'm sure Nick's going to take notes and take home to his grandpa. Ms. Sarah Graff is a staff representative for Congressman Sam Graves. Mr. Michael Crouch, University of Missouri Extension, Northeast Missouri Regional Director. We have Mr. Bob Bainan, who is Interim Vice President for University Advancement for A.T. Still University. Another hat that he wears. He serves on our Extension Council, and he was a former legislator. I could just tell you all sorts of things about him, but we'll just let him stand anyway. Dr. Tim Walston, Truman State University, Dean of Science and Math, Professor of Biology. Joe Rankin, MU Extension Professor, Health Sciences from Columbia. Leslie Speller Henderson, Education Director for MU Extension Nutrition, Home and Family. We have with us also Ms. Carol Kellum. We'll hear a little bit more from her in a little bit. She's Vice President and General Manager for KTVO Television. Mr. Mark Shahan, Presiding Commissioner. I'm not certain if his wife Charlene is with him, but Mark is here. Mr. Mark Thompson, Adair County Commissioner and his wife Mindy, Mr. Bill King, Adair County Commissioner, Ms. Lois Bragg, in-district legislative assistant for the 18th Senatorial District. She works with Senator Cindy O'Loughlin. And I think Mr. Zach Burton, the mayor of Kirksville, is are also here. Let's show these friends of ours appreciation. So we do thank everyone for attending and supporting the symposium, and certainly for coming to our Kirksville community. We particularly thank all of you who came from a distance, and certainly appreciate the out-of-area folks that might drop a dollar in the economy while here.
Thank you.
Yeah, gotcha. The symposium is recognized as an outstanding tourism event, and there's many in our area who do appreciate you all coming and being a part of this. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Carol Kellum, General Manager of KTVO Television. The support that is provided by KTVO for the Missouri Symposium is deeply appreciated. The success of the symposium is directly linked to their help and involvement. So thank you to the staff. I know they were doing some news shots even from here this evening. It takes a lot of talented people to collaborate and coordinate the symposium, and you, Carol, and your folks certainly make that easier with your involvement. So I'll now turn this overall microphone over to her. She has a presentation.
And good evening. Each year, the Symposium Committee and KTVO team up to sponsor a photo contest, and it encourages amateur photographers in the state of Missouri to submit photos that show some aspect of agriculture, including farm life, farm scenes, or livestock. These photo entries were on display at the Missouri Livestock Symposium Facebook page, and this year we had a total of 110 entries, which is incredible. And of course, we'd like to thank everyone who submitted photos. And the prize of any photo is on the cover of your 2023 Missouri Livestock Symposium booklet. And the winning photographer of this beautiful picture is Carrie Shrew of La Plata, Missouri. Carrie, can you please come down? We'd like to thank you in person. And I understand this photo was taken in southwest Adair County at the farmstead of some of Carrie's relatives. A flag in the driveway serves as a reminder of the family pride in our country and gratitude to those family members who have served in the military. We're so pleased to present Carrie with the spring cover of the 2023 program booklet and a check for $100. So congratulations, Carrie. It was a beautiful picture.
Thank you so much, Carol. As we say, you are a big part of our annual event. At this time, I'm going to mention a name, and this name probably is familiar to many of you here tonight. That name is Charles Rosencrans. He served our northern Missouri area as an extension livestock specialist for nearly 4 decades. Following his graduation from Mizzou, he began his extension career while in Missouri, Sullivan County, in 1962. And over the next 40 years, he worked as a livestock specialist in many of our northeast Missouri counties. Mr. Charles learned the importance of communication very early in his career. He began a weekly newspaper column called Chatting with Charlie, and that ran in newspapers statewide for 40 years. The sentences were short and simple and easy to understand. Despite his retirement in 2000, Charlie has remained among the top cheerleaders for the University of Missouri College of Agriculture, including Natural Resources and MU Extension. He's received many honors and awards, one of them being right here. In 2016, he received the Agriculture Educator Lifetime Achievement Award from our symposium. He still has Angus and Hereford cattle at his Monroe County farm, northwest of Paris. Still has time for a little fishing, a lot of volunteering, and he especially enjoys his work with the Paris Lions Club as at Mark Twain Lake's Hunt for the Physically Challenged Hunters. He and his wife are very active in the Paris Church, Methodist Church, and certainly many community activities. Please welcome to the podium Mr. Charles Rosenkranz.
Thank you, Andy. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. First of all, I want to introduce a lady that's been a part of my life for 15 years. Leslie, if you stand up, turn around, these people that you see. She is my administrative assistant. Now, those of you that have been married to a good lady for quite some time know what all that entails. Bob, after the phone, coming out and helping hold the gate while Charlie tries to drive a steer onto the trailer, all the other good things. She can cook, she can sew. This shirt was made by her. I bought the material when we were going to the National County Agents meeting in Portland, Oregon. And I looked at the Pendleton shirts. We was at the Pendleton factory, and I said, my God, $50, and this is 15 years ago. $50 for a Pendleton shirt? No way Rosencrantz had to work too hard for his money. He's not paying that. I said, if I can buy some fabric, can you make a shirt like these other guys, like they're charging that $50 for? Sure, I can sew. I can make you a shirt. So this is the result of that purchase. Very good. Thank you, honey. I was here last year. And the guy just, I was a little bit disgusted last year, guys, when I left. There was no honoree for the livestock person of the year, as I come. And I think I'm pretty sure I told you at that time when I left that there would be at least one nomination from a qualified candidate. Well, Dr. Vincent Mac Willis is the honoree for tonight. Now, first of all, I want to thank the Monroe County Extension Council, the Monroe County Farm Bureau, the Paris National Bank, Dr. Sarah Thomas, Dr. Linda Firth, and Mrs. Joyce Griswold for writing letters of support. And I'm going to tell you about 3 or 4 things that is not published in the publication that is being distributed for this gentleman here tonight. I think Max served, and I will serve on the Paris School Board at the same time. He learned a lot quicker than Charlie Rosencrantz. I think he served 2 terms. I it took me 5 terms to get enough education to quit. The other thing that is a milestone in a lot of areas is Mac is a Masonic Mason for Holiday Lodge number 660. And Mac, I haven't asked you this, but I've almost bet that Granddaddy Woods had a little bit of inspiration and youth given to me into the Masons. And I'm not sure, Mac, but you have probably served as every chair in the Masonic Lodge, maybe even secretary. Maybe you have to answer that question when you get up here. But he has really donated a lot of time to the Masonic work. And the other comment I want to make is, in this booklet, it talks about Mac learning how to work at an early age. Now, folks, his granddad on his mom's side was, as they called him, Granddaddy Wood. He and my grandpa's brothers started life about the same time. My grandpa, when I graduated from high school, I started on a job working for a neighbor about 6 miles south of Hannibal on a Gray Day dairy orchard farm, and I was making $5 a day, and my dinner, and getting a vehicle to drive back and forth about 11 miles. When I told my grandpa that, he said, "Oh," he said, "you're making way too much money. You're not worth that. You know, I had to work for 25 cents a day." You know. And we people nowadays think we've got problems, and we're making the way to do make them. So, at Granddaddy Woods' place back, there's probably basketball goals, there's probably football in the play box for you to play with. It was a pitchfork and a metal scoop shovel, probably. This was before aluminum scoop shovel became available. No. So, and the other thing I want to say about the wilts. There's a lot of them in Shelby and Monroe County. All of them, and I've worked with several of them, they all know how to work. And there's not one of them on welfare. So, does that tell you all something about the Wilt families? You know, they all know how to put the muscle to the core. Yeah. So, but Mac has also opened up his business. Since he had to start weighing steers in the county fair, he's been an active participant in the Missouri State Steer Beat Out. I have put steers in that program. I have done it for the last 4 or 5 years. There's the program that several of you know that Elvin Cole spearheaded and worked it really hard when he was still with us. Yeah. Mac has also been a really strong supporter of our local youth fair auctions and the FFA labor auction. You can always tell Dr. Wilt making his presence known. So, I was going to say Mr. Mathis, and I'm sorry to hear that he is sick enough that he can't be here tonight. So I guess, Zach, you or Aggie, I want to turn over to you, Mr. Benson Mac Wilt, for the Livestock Achievement Award. I want to say, before I get off this microphone over that Charlie Rosengrantz take too long. But I've introduced Dr. Wilt on the local level at swine meetings that I used to host, short courses that I used to do. He used to come and make presentations for me. He never turned me down of making a presentation for me. There was a couple of times, Dr. Mack, I think that you were already pre-engaged. And he said, Charlie, he said, I've already made contact with Dr. Taylor at Fayette, that clinic, or Dr. Van Broman, yeah, Dr. Broman, and they did. They come and done almost as good a job as Mac will. So it has been a tremendous honor and a privilege for me to present Dr. Ethel.
Thanks for that introduction, Leslie.
Somebody turn the lights up. I'd like to give accolades to my wife for 44 years. Pam, she's back in the back.
The wife of a veterinarian, you know, the dirty laundry thing that Baxter Black did lots of years ago. If you haven't seen that, she's got it posted on the refrigerator in the laundry room. It's quite clever. I would never do it justice to repeat it. I've been doing this for 45 years. I graduated in 1978 from the University of Missouri. There were 72 of us in the class, and 14 women. The rest of us were men. Now the classes are just exactly the opposite. I still enjoy doing what I'm doing. My staff is back here. All but one of them came tonight. And I'm very proud of you guys, and I'm happy that you support me, not just tonight, but each and every day. Would you guys stand up? Sarah, sorry about that. It's hard to see. I've also got a crowd full of my clients out here. You guys want to stand up too? Come on. The Thomas brothers, David, Robert, you guys never have to work a day in your life, and you got people like that supporting you and behind you. Everything that I do, I still enjoy doing. I hope my body will continue to allow me to do it. That kind of turns my wife's hair gray, but I still enjoy it. My granddad was, that Charlie mentioned, said more people rust out than wear out. I could stand up here and tell you stories on Charlie. He would turn around and tell stories on me. My brother is sitting back there. My sister-in-law, David and Lori, they're back there. My sister, Libby, is back there. Tyler once told me, I can tell you two stories that really come to mind about my nephew, Tyler. One day, I was late getting to the farm for work. I said, Tyler, we had a class in veterinary school teaching us lots of things, and one of those was to be tardy. He said, Uncle Mac, you didn't have to get an A in today in class. The other thing was, and you're going to hear a veterinarian, Dr. Perry, speak tomorrow on Clostridium hemolyticum, which is kind of devastated, at least in some parts of northeast Missouri. About 3 years ago, their veterinarian didn't take action quite quick enough. We were losing some cows to Redwater. And Tyler, after about the fourth or fifth cow, he says, Uncle Mac, do you think it's time we spend some money trying to figure this problem out? My clients, I believe, have been very patient with me for 45 years. David, Douglas, Sally, I appreciate you guys. Aaron, you're a client as well as an important part of my staff. Jason, you're back there too. Sorry about that. I got a great team. There are lots of veterinary clinics in this state and country who are dealing with issues trying to find associates. I am blessed. I've been blessed by the Lord above with my health, with a wonderful family. My girls are not able to be here tonight. I do have a grandson, Alex, is back there. I didn't know about it. He's still there too. I'm proud of him for doing what he does every day. He helps me out. But I've been blessed for 45 years. I have a goal. My goal is to make it to 50. That is for no other reason other than to say that I was able to serve the livestock community for that length of time. Thanks for the honor, Charlie, and all those in the Paris community that have supported me for 45 years. Thank you.
Certainly, congratulations are in place, and we want all of the guests and colleagues and friends that have followed Dr. Bill here to stay afterward. We want to get a nice group picture of everyone that's here. We are so pleased to have with us tonight a neat young lady who is an effective agricultural advocate. Her name is Miss Audrey Belfield, and she's the 19-year-old daughter of Jason and Tina Belfield. She works and lives on the family's fourth-generation row crop and cattle farm west of La Plata. She's currently a freshman at Northwest Missouri State University, where she's pursuing a degree in agricultural sciences and to have an emphasis of ag business, agronomy, and soil sciences. Let's just get some education, girl. Look at you. On the Northwest Missouri State campus, she's part of the Sigma Alpha Beta chapter. She's also a member of Collegiate Farm Bureau and Collegiate FFA. And in the FFA, she's going to be serving as the second vice president for the campus chapter. This past summer, Audrey competed at the Missouri State Fair pageant, where she received first runner-up, and she was also awarded the top speech award. So Audrey has a strong passion for agriculture. She enjoys cultivating her passion through ag events and activities, and tonight we are going to be pleased to hear her speech, which is entitled, So God Made a Farmer's Daughter, from her talent portion at the Missouri State Fair contest. Miss Audrey Belfield.
And on the 8th day, God looked upon his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer, Paul Harvey. Wow. Paul Harvey said that at the National FFA Convention in 1978. That was a long time ago. Now, here's the rest of the story. And then on the 9th day, God looked upon his creation and said, he needs a shadow. So God made a farmer's daughter. God said, I need someone who's fearless, who can drive a tractor, but help bring more cattle. Someone who will spend countless hours picking up sticks and rubble out of the fields. So God made a farmer's daughter. God said, I need someone to wash tractors and semis. Someone to deliver seed to the field. I need someone who will run the town and pick up a part when the planter breaks down. So God made a farmer's daughter. God said, I need someone to deliver meals to the field. Someone who will get out of bed, throw on a pair of work jeans, and go build a planter early in the morning or late at night. Someone who will sit in the combine and chat for hours as her father shells corn. So God made a farmer's daughter. I need someone who can fail over and over and over again, and yet get back up and try again. Someone who can paint their nails, put on a dress and be ready for a pageant, but slip on a pair of work boots when the cattle get out. So God made a farmer's daughter. God said, I need someone who is passionate about agriculture. Someone who understands the meaning of a full day's work. I need someone who will advocate for agriculture and the community that raised her. So God made a farmer's daughter. All around us are farmers' daughters, young and old, one thing in common. Oh, excuse me, I'm getting a phone call. Hey, Dad, what's up? You need me to go get a part? Oh, need to get you a snack? Okay, see you later. Bye. We answer the call of the American farmer. I am the farmer's daughter.
Aren't we fortunate and blessed to have those individuals in our community? Oh my goodness. Totally appreciate that. We're going to do a quick change with some of our technology back there. You'll have to let me know when we have the next individual ready. You see, the You saw it right here. It's secure with the outstanding, articulate young leaders that are sharing this info, and it's also supported by this genuine passion. They continue to connect with the consumers. That's our future. And speaking of that, as I segue, do we have another individual ready? So this is the natural segue that I'd like to make with our next presenter. Another member of royalty, Miss Emma Hardy of rural Arbela, Missouri. Emma is the Missouri Beef Queen. She's representing the Missouri Cattlemen's and the Missouri Cattlewomen's Association. She's a 17-year-old daughter of Brian and Brandy Harvey. She's a senior at Scotland County R1 High School. Raised on a farm north of Arbela, where they raise Simmental, Angus, and cattle, along with corn, soybeans. And Emma has been a junior member of the Missouri Cattlemen for about 3 years. Won her title in January of this year. She won her crown in a contest consisting of a 10-minute speech and a personal interview. Being the youngest in the pageant, she was declared the winner. And since her coronation, she's attended events throughout the state, Missouri Beef Days, Off-Breed Show, State Pride, the Governor's Ham Breakfast, and so many more. She is representing the association. She's very invested with her extracurriculars in school. She shoots trap, she plays basketball, she's in color guard, she's a cheerleader, and she's very articulate. Emma's the junior advisor of the Memphis FFA chapter and president of the student council. And after high school, I think Emma's going to find herself in the same spot where Audrey is. She plans to attend Northwest Missouri State University to major in what else? Agriculture communications with a minor in political science. Emma loves to advocate for the beef community and the agriculture community as a whole. Please welcome Emma Hardy.
To inform the people of not only Missouri, but the nation as a whole of the struggles that farmers face every single day. My name is Emma Harvey, and I'm the 2023 Missouri Beef Queen. The ever-approaching crush of urbanization plays a major role in the disappearance of family farms. Wild Farmers Foundation said this in 2021. Farmers are losing their land because of land development, prices that make it hard to turn a profit, and corporate competitors. This is just one simple factor of the struggles that farmers face every day. The people who are making enough money to support a family are the people on top running bigger corporations, and the people who are trying to expand simply cannot afford to do so. This leads to other problems like loss of production and farmer suicide. The Guardian released that 1 in 10 farmers will die from suicide in the U.S., and that 67% of all American farmers suffer from severe depression. This statement has so much power behind it, and not enough people know that this is an issue at hand. Another reason farmers are struggling is because of organizations who push to shut the agriculture community down. People for Ethnic Treatment of Animals, better known as PETA, is the largest animal rights organization in the world, and they believe that our way of life and family legacy is cruel and wrong. PETA says on today's farms, animals used for food are crammed by the thousands into filthy, windowless sheds, or stuffed into wire cages, metal crates, and other torturous devices. This is absolutely not a true statement. More often than not, farmers treat their livestock like family, waking up early in the morning to feed and water, or staying out late to pull calves so the cows not have to be in pain. Some farmers will even go an extra mile with special vaccinations and dewormers. PETA also says, on today's farms, babies are torn away from the sides of their loving mothers, a nourishment that a mother longs to provide. The benefits of weaning cattle are endless. Weaning the calf off the cow is beneficial because it allows the nutrients that were once traveling into her milk to go throughout her own body, improve her own conditions, and prepare her for the next season's calving. It is no secret in any industry, there is always going to be somebody who doesn't agree with your way of life, and they're going to try and stop your livelihood. All it takes to help certain people understand this is simple: education. Educating the youth of America is what it takes to help people understand what agriculture really is. Social media can be so impactful, but teaching people that what they posting on Facebook or Instagram isn't always 100% truthful, and that doing some research on your own can be beneficial before you choose a side to stand by. Chris Chen is the Director of Agriculture for Missouri, and she has worked hard to come up with a solution for this problem. Not only has Chen found a way to help the farmers of Missouri, but she has given them a real agriculturalist to talk to who knows the issues and understands the problems. If you pull up the Missouri Department of Agriculture website, Chen has put this on the front page. In rural communities, we are still closely knit. We know our neighbors, and we look out for each other. More community resources can be the solution to the problem. Chen is so adamant about her project that she has worked for months to be given grants by the National Institution of Food and Agriculture, the NIFA. She has also worked with the NIFA Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network, distributing mental health resources and training through info extensions. With all this help, Missouri farmer suicide rates being at the high since 2015 might start to shallow. Farmers are drowning in bills, looking for a way out, but sometimes it might seem like there is no point in trying. Local level farmers are trying to butcher their beef, but are having a hard time to do so because of corporate competitors. That being said, did you know there are only 4 major beef packing plants in the whole United States that control around 80% of the beef cattle market? This is making it hard for local level farmers to butcher their beef. If you can't butcher your beef, how are you supposed to make money? Imagine a stressed local farmer with full-grown animals and nowhere to take it. There is a solution. A new beef packing plant breaking ground in Missouri. The plant will process around 2,400 head daily, buying from big farms or directly from your family's farm. The plant will buy as few head as one or a whole semi-trailer full. This is making it easier for local level farmers to butcher their beef. JBS USA, Tyson, Cargill, and the National Beef Packing Institution are the companies running the show. This means that they have the power to create the whole beef cattle market. Setting prices to only make money for themselves means that they are not reliable or dependable sources of income for small-time cattle farmers and ranchers. So many people are influenced by this movement. Even Governor Mike Parson had said this. As a third-generation farmer and cattleman myself, I am proud to welcome the American Food Groups LLC to Missouri. Parson is a farmer putting his own foot in the equation. The plant hopes to offer new jobs to local level farmers, giving them a reliable and dependable source of income, hoping to lower the number of farmer suicide and depression rates in Missouri. It will also create a more competitive market for wholesale beef as well. I love to work hard to influence people about what I know about farmers, ranchers, and our way of life. Influencing politicians to focus on the agricultural view of things and pushing them to reach out to this community. Reaching out to the folks who want to learn of our way of life and giving them the resources and materials they need to do so. Traveling around the state to not only share my personal experiences, but the facts behind the business. Missouri cattle farmers are making such a huge impact on today's society. This is no easy task, but nothing can stop their drive for this passion. Everybody knows every good speaker has a staple for every speech they do. So I'm going to tell you guys a joke. Where did the steer go to dance? The meatball. And when he got there, how do you introduce his date? Meat patty. Thank you.
So, did you hear me say earlier, the future of the ag industry is strong, it's bright. We have articulate, we have enthusiastic young folks that are eager to share their information with ag producers, ag business folks, and consumers. Thank you, girls. We just really appreciate you being here, and we applaud you, and we support you, and we're watching you become the rising stars. Give them another round. Educational programs begin at 9. We have a great lineup of speakers that you'll be able to hear from. The best in the livestock industry, and of course the subjects are on beef cattle, horses, meat goats, sheep, forages, stock dogs, as well as talks on marketing fundamentals, building resistance in pastures, farm estate and succession planning, flower arrangements. Oh yes, those are see an evaluation sheet. We wish to encourage everyone to complete that evaluation, remove it from the book, and share your opinion with the committee. Now, there's a box at the registration desk, registration area, that we would like for you to leave your evaluation page. And the enticement is incentive for you to submit your evaluation, because those attendees will be competing for a prize of $100. So it pays to play. Turn in your evaluations. That will help us plan for our future times. Certainly be worthy of your time to offer your opinion. So fill it out and turn it in. At this time, I am going to invite to the podium a young man who actually seems to be wise beyond his years. He provides hands-on assistance to the area producers that are involved in the Show Me Select Capital program. This enables increased net income for these area cattle operations. He's been recognized by Missouri Farm Bureau as the outstanding extension specialist of our state. He's a mentor to many in his professional circle of ag educators. This young man is an essential leader of this symposium event. Have you noticed? He stands tall, but not only in physical stature, he's tall in the eyes of many that he provides the knowledge and guidance and wisdom in many ways. He really is an old soul. I don't know from where he came, but I do accept his guidance very well. Please welcome our University of Missouri Extension Livestock Specialist for the Northeast region, Zach Earle.
Very much, Andy, although I'm not sure who that name is. I'll challenge anybody to give me the year that might have been taken. Might have a cash prize for that one. Again, I just want to echo what Andy was saying and everybody for coming this evening. It's my pleasure to be up here on behalf of Dan Sullivan and the Sullivan Auctioneers to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. You would say Mr. Corbett Wall had a life business. Are we okay with that? Had the livestock business in his roots. His grandfather having built, owned, and operated a sale barn in New Mexico. His father always being in the cattle trade. Corbett began his professional career with USDA Market News Service, having traveled from Pennsylvania to Minnesota, ultimately landing in St. Joseph, Missouri. About 17 years ago, this is where I met Corbett for the first time. He would always go around and grade the Show Me Select bred heifer replacement sales. And if you know anything about those, we have the graders come in and their word is final. And so he would come through and look at them all and pick a few out, and then you go up and you talk to him and you say, what was wrong with this one? Well, long toe, didn't see that, or maybe a little spot in the eye. And every once in a while he'd just say, I just don't like her. And I just have to say, okay, that's all right. I don't remember what year it was, Corbett, you may remember, but he parted ways with USDA Market News Service about 8-9 years ago-ish. Probably one of the not so smart things for USDA Market News Service, but probably one of the better things for yourself. Corbett has become what I would revere as a person that says what he means and means what he says. He's a straightforward talker. He's an industry advocate for all beef producers, and you have to truly enjoy his in-depth knowledge of the market. And so I'll have to say it was about 8 years ago-ish where you made your first appearance at the Missouri Livestock Symposium. We have a mutual friend in which said, hey, you ought to invite Corbett to come talk. And I said, sounds like a good idea. And it went over well. And I believe this is probably your third appearance here. And so I'm going to take a little bit of credit for maybe catapulting you in your fame within the livestock trade, whether that's deserved or not. And so without further ado, I will announce your keynote speaker this evening. I'm glad to have him, Mr. Corbett Wall.
Okay. Yeah, I was glad when Zach asked me to come to the Missouri Symposium, and I told him, I said, I've been there a time or two. It seemed like just a year or two ago. And he said, no, it's like 8 years. But, and I just noticed, I think Zach and I got a pretty good start on a country music band. Don't you guys think? Have you got any skills? You need it. Damn. Oh, we'll work around that. I'm going to talk to you guys about marketing, and that's what I talk about for the most part, is marketing. And I think that's one reason that I've caught a pretty good following, is because I talk about marketing. So what does everybody in the cattle business pretty much focus on day in and day out, especially when they come to these educational events? And if you walk through the trade show, you see that it's about 99% production, right? Or for sure, including production and health. And I think that's something that we really miss out on, is our marketing. Now, right now, we've got a big problem with open cows in the northern plains. And I don't know how much you guys have heard about it, but it's serious. It's devastating. You talk about eastern Montana and Wyoming, western South Dakota and North Dakota, and northwestern Nebraska and places like that. They're crate checking those cows on those big ranches, and a lot of them are coming up 30% or more open. And that is devastating. And most of you guys, if you crate check your cows, for the most part, you're going to have about a 10% open cow when you crate check. But if it gets to be 20 or 30, you're going to put your foot down. You're going to search through everything and figure out what it is. And that's what they're doing right now in the northern plains out there. So we're going to have a lot smaller calf crop next year than what we had this year, which I believe was smaller than what was advertised. But still, I don't know if fundamentals are going to be enough to keep prices as high as they have been, or even higher, even though we might deserve that. But talking about marketing, I just said that if you had a 10% rate on your open cows, you would think, that was pretty normal. And if it was any more than that, then you would start to get pretty excited. Well, if you sell your calves and maybe they don't reach within 20% of the top of the market, you don't get too excited about it. Well, maybe we'll do better next year, And, well, couldn't do anything about that. Sure wish we could have. I think it's the same, is it not? It's exactly the same. I think we should spend more time on our marketing, and I think we can do more about it than what you guys think. But I want to give you guys a little bit of history about cattle marketing, and show you kind of where we're at. Show you some things that we look at for the future. I noticed Emma was talking about how we have a high suicidal rate in farmers. My talk is not very uplifting, so if you see somebody trying to slit their wrist with a plastic knife that they brought in from the cafeteria, we'll alert somebody, exactly, come over there and help them out or something. But I think it's something that you need to see, and it's truthful, and I think it's something that we need to start trying to figure out. I guess. Why? We go back to the beginning of cattle production, or not the beginning of cattle production, but why did we have cattle drives? Why were they herding cattle? To make movies, or we were herding cattle on cattle drives for marketing, were we not? So they were taking big droves of cattle from Texas and down that way, and they were bringing them up north, and they were bringing them straight up north for what reason? To find a railhead so that they could load them on rail cars so that they could ship them back east to the big population areas so that they could market those cattle. That's the reason we were doing that. Marketing has been a struggle in the cattle industry since the very beginning. And there may be a few old timers in here that have loaded cattle on rail cars. I have not. My dad didn't. My granddad did. My granddad at his sale barn in Clayton, New Mexico, actually had to build a spur off the railroad so that they could back up and load and unload cattle there. But so we had freight on rail cars. Well, when you talked about your big areas where they were bringing a lot of cattle in, they had to build some pretty big facilities to hold those cattle before they loaded them to put them on the rail and send them back east. So these big facilities we ended up calling stockyards. These were owned by the railroad company. And the railroad company just wanted the freight. They were all about the freight. And they wanted to get that. But they noticed as they were building these, like that one, building these big facilities to hold these cattle before they loaded them on the rail, they noticed that there started to be quite a bit of marketing that was going on in those facilities that were owned by the railroad company. And some people would bring their cattle, whether they drive them or later bring them by truck, and bring them into those yards. Some of them wanted to sell them right then. They wanted to sell them right then, and they wanted to get it checked in. They didn't want to go through extra risk and time of sending them back east and then worrying about what they were going to bring. So this became a place where a lot of cattle were marketed. And then the railroad companies got smart and they decided, you know what, we want to make some money off this, but we really don't want to get into the cattle marketing business. But what we're going to do is we're going to lease or rent sections of our facility to different commission firms so that they can do business there. And so we'll allow them to come into our facility. They're going to have to pay us a fee to have our facilities, and then they will be basically their facilities, and they can operate there. And so that was the way the stockyard started back in the old days. And I'm talking about the old stockyards whenever we used to sell them on the bricks. And the reason they said that's because most of the alleyways were paved with bricks so that they wouldn't be muddy and be easier to move cattle up and down through there. But this is how pretty much all of our cattle were marketed from the late 1800s all the way up until the 1960s. Most all of your cattle were sold through a terminal market stockyard. And we sold our cattle at a market weight. So you didn't sell calves. You didn't have to worry about selling ball-in calves because nobody sold calves back in those days. Nobody sold yearlings back in those days. You raised your cattle and you raised them until they were at a market weight. And then you would take them to the stockyards. And so the cattle, they were at a market weight. Some of them were grain-fed. We started finding out that people liked that sweet meat that you get from feeding cattle grain, especially corn. And some of these cattle in here would have been grass-fed, but it wasn't for any kind of a niche market. It was just because that's all they had to feed them. But if you guys were trailing a big buck deer, I would hope that you would be smart enough to trail the one that had been hiding out in the cornfield rather than the brush, right? Okay. Same thing that the consumers found out. So that's how this started. So we started bringing your cattle in here. You would consign them to a commission man. He would merchandise the cattle similar to the way that your sale barns do it now. They get them sorted up, ready to show to buyers. And like I said, everybody was selling cattle that were ready for slaughter. And by this time, most of your big packing houses had built slaughter facilities that were all around the stockyard, right? If you were bringing something to the stockyards that was not ready for slaughter, it was a calf or a yearling or something like that, you were over here in what they called the trader alley. And so, if you did business over here in the Trader Alley, you were a second-class citizen at the stockyards, and you guys remember the stockyards. They were kind of a hierarchy there. But the Trader Alley guys were somewhere below the hog people. But where the rubber met the road was the cattle sellers, or the commission firms, and the packer buyers that bought the market-ready fat cattle or finished cattle, ready for slaughter cattle. So when people say, man, that was such an inefficient way to sell those cattle. That was terrible. Think of all that shrink on those cattle, and they just had to move them around, and this and that. And oh my gosh, what a terrible way to sell cattle. That was the best way that we ever had to sell finished cattle. Everything that we've done since is worse. You had competition. You had a level playing field. Everybody was treated the same. So back in those days, you had packers and stockyards agents. So P&S people. And most of you that's ever run into P&S people, you think they're worthless as tits on a borehole. Well, they didn't used to be. Back in the stockyard days, the packers and stockyards agents had teeth. The P&S Act was fairly new. They were enforcing it, which they stopped doing. And so you had P&S agents that were walking up down these alleys, and they were making sure everything was up on the up and up. You had commission guys that were up here showing their cattle and talking to the buyers. You had buyers that were doing it. You had market reporters like me and my buddy Greg Harrison. They were walking up down the alleyways doing interviews with buyers and sellers and trying to find out what the market was, and then they were getting back to the office and sending that out all over the country. But this was a good way to sell cattle, and it was fair. And most people don't realize, and I didn't, but I'm in my career with USDA, I was able to work at several big stockyard terminal yards. I worked in South St. Paul, worked in, I covered some of the last sales there. Lancaster stockyards in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I covered the last sale there. I was in St. Joe, Missouri at that terminal market for 15 years or more. I was in Sioux City and graded cattle, but I was in a lot of these old markets, and I loved listening to the old stories from the old stockyard guys. And one of my favorite stories about this was had a guy brought his cattle in to sell them at the stockyards. And they said that when they come in, they had a place where you actually walked on the top of the fence, and then they had a bench where you could sit and you were up on top of the fence. And then they had the cattle commission guys, and of course they were all proper, they wore top coats like me and Zach, and they had leather gloves on and a fancy Western hat, and they'd always have a Western whip, and they'd ride a fancy horse that they had groomed real nice, and they would ride through the yards with the greatest of ease, and they were kind of the catch me out back in those days. And so producer come in there and he sat down, and he said, the commission man on the horse come up there and he said, well, Mr. Davis, he says, I didn't have you wrote down to bring your cattle in until tomorrow. And he said, but you brought your cattle in today? And he said, yeah. He said, for the last 30 years, every time I bring the cattle in, you'd say you should have been here yesterday. So today, I'm here yesterday. So that was a good story about the commission firm guys. But they would walk up and down. But I didn't realize until I talked to the old guys, they said, the packers just couldn't come in and out of the yards as they pleased. They had to wait until the bell rang. I said, what do you mean the bell rang? And he said, well, they had to wait till they were ready for them. So all these cattle would come in the night before or through the night, and then early in the morning they would be getting them all merchandised and sorted up and all that. And they said that your packer buyers had to stay in the coffee shop in the exchange building. They couldn't come into the yards. And so let's say at 9 o'clock, then they would say that's when the bell rings, and some stockyards actually had whistles or bells that they blew, and then the packer buyers could enter the yards. And when they entered the yards, they would draw usually out of a hat, and they would see which commission firm that they would start their negotiations with. And then they would have a rotation after that. So let's say the bell rang and all the packer buyers come in there and they're ready to go look at cattle. And let's say I'm Armor, I'm the big dog on the block. I'm Armor Pack. And I pull out the smallest commission firm. What do? They go to that commission firm and they start trying to buy cattle. Let's say I'm just a small packer and I draw Corn Belt Commission Company. They got the biggest bunches, they got the best cattle, they're the best finished, everything's great, and they got big swaths of them, but they only need a handful. What do? They go there and they start trying to buy cattle. So what would happen if it was today? Let's say it was today and the bell rang. Well, for one thing, Tyson and JPS, they would have already made a deal with the commission firm that had the most cattle. They would have already established that they were going to get all those cattle. There wasn't going to be but hardly any cattle left at all to even trade on. They would have made some kind of a sweetheart deal. They would have paid them underneath the table. They would have given them ball game tickets and free steaks and all this kind of stuff. And there wouldn't have been any kind of a level playing field. The old P&S agents that used to walk up and down these alleys, they made sure that everything was on the up and up. So when you drew a commission firm and you went out there and started trying to buy cattle, let's say they really didn't have the kind of cattle you wanted. Well, you would still try to buy some, because likely if you waited until the cattle you saw as you was walking to the first commission guy's alley, and you saw some nice cattle over there, likely if you waited, by the time you got around there, those cattle have already been sold. But it made for a level playing field, and there was competition, and they were competing against one another with active bidding. And we just don't see that happening on the fat cattle side. So I'd say in the early to mid 1960s, and most all your cattle that were fed grain back in these days were fed in the Midwest. Farmer feeders, what we call them today. But by the early to mid 1960s, they got tired of fighting the mud, and they didn't have the equipment that we have today to take care of it. We see a lot of the feeding is starting to migrate back to the north and to the Midwest because there's more cattle and there's more feed there. But by the early to mid 1960s, they had decided, hey, let's go out here where it never rains, where I live, in the great American desert, and if we can find a hillside that will kind of drain a little bit, we can come out here on some cheap ground, we can pour a bunch of bunk, we can build some big pipe pens, throw up a feed mill, and we can feed those cattle a whole lot more efficiently than what they did behind the silo or behind the barn out there in the Midwest. And so they started doing that. They found out they could feed them more efficiently. It changed everything. We started feeding cattle that were more efficient to feed. We stopped feeding them to such high quality grades. And so we started seeing that a lot. The packers saw this too, and they decided that they wanted to leave this area because most of the packing houses that they had built there were gravity flow. So they walked the cattle up the ramps, they come in, and they would kill them up there, and then they would say they would bleed them out, and then they'd slide down a ramp, and then maybe they would split them, and then they would slide down another ramp, and then they would jerk the hide off of them. They'd keep sliding down, and they had to use gravity because they didn't have automation. Well, we had automation by the 1960s. So your packers decided, hey, let's go out here where the cattle are being fed, and then we'll build packing houses out here with automation. So that's what they did. And it's at this point where we lost control of our marketing of finished cattle, market-ready cattle. we started seeing your packers invest in these feedlots. Where there was always a rule in your Packers and Stockyards Act that packers could not own cattle. That was a conflict of interest. But there was no P&S agents out here. All your Packers and Stockyards agents were sitting in the office at the exchange building at the old stockyards with their feet up wondering where all the cattle went. Well, they were out west. And so your packers started investing in these lots. They started becoming partners with the feeders. So if you own packing houses, what's your biggest need? You got to have something to hang on those hooks, right? And so they started getting all their needs met with their sweetheart deals with all these big cattle feeders. And so that became a norm out there, and they weren't enforcing the P&S laws. And then by the time that the old stockyards closed, and we still had Packers and Stockyards Administration, it was too late. It had already gone too far. And then at that point, they decided, well, we'll let that slide. The Packers can own cattle as long as the sign out front doesn't say Cargill. Actually, it did say Mumford, but that was when we lost this. And so we start seeing all these sweetheart deals, and we lost the need from the packer, we lost the competition from the packer, and we lost our control of the supply. Your packers control the supply through their sweetheart deals and through their formula trades. We don't control the supply anymore. So when you've got one entity in the relationship that controls supply and demand, we're just bottom feeders, right? We're not even in the relationship. You look at formula sales of fed cattle, and these are the 4 or the 5 areas, cattle feeding areas that we get information from. Colorado doesn't have enough trade, even though it's one of the 5 major feeding areas, doesn't have enough trade, and there's no information that comes out of there. So we just see the 4. But you look over the years, and this is 2005, how the amount of formula sales have just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. So we're getting to the point now where Texas and western Oklahoma, eastern New Mexico, that feedlot area there, look, this is their feedlot sales. They're up around 90%. In 2015, the amount of negotiated cattle that's sold, like, what do you want for them? Here's what I'll give. I won't take that, but I'll give this. And they haggled over the cattle. The amount of cattle that they actually sold in negotiation in 2015 was 2.6%. That should shock you. 2.6%. So how hard would it be to manipulate the price on that 2.6% if you were a packer and you knew you were going to get to buy all the rest of the cattle based off of that one price? It wouldn't be hard at all. And it began happening at a big rate. So you saw Kansas. Kansas is not quite as heavily formula trade, but right behind it. So I'm saying this year, Texas negotiated sales will probably be 5 or 6%. Kansas will be about 11%. Nebraska will be about 31, 2 or 3% of the total sales will be negotiated. And still, Iowa sells about half their cattle negotiated. Now your packers and your formula sellers and all your big corporate feeders will tell you, you've got to have some kind of a formula arrangement to get paid for your highest quality cattle. Where do they feed the highest quality cattle in the world? Iowa. Iowa feeds the highest quality grading cattle in the world, and they still sell the most negotiated. They can pay more for the good cattle if they want to. There's no law against that. And so that's why I don't agree with that. But look at that, and that should shock you. This thing is really touchy. Okay. Now this is a pretty important graph, and even if you're not a graph person, and I'm not really a graph person, but this one should be pretty easy. This is your relationship between your fat steers and your choice cutouts. So this is the product that cattle feeders make and the product that packers make. You may have some people tell you, and it may be NCBA, the National Corporate Beef Association. They may tell you that you're in the beef business. You're not in the beef business unless you're selling beef. And I know some of you are. I saw Ken Keesman earlier, he sells beef. A lot of you sell half beefs and quarters and things like that. But if you're just selling cattle, you're in the cattle business. If you were in the beef business, your packers would share some of the profit that they make at times, and they don't share that. But you look at the relationship. It's not the same price, but it's the relationship. If choice boxes are higher, fat steers are higher. If they're lower, fat steers are lower. And you look from the beginning of time, coming in here, you saw that they were just right on top of each other. And it makes sense that they would be like that. Until you get over here, and then whoa, what happened here? They quit having the same relationship. You think, well, what is this area right in here? And you can say, well, that's profit for your packers, because these are your box beef cutout values up here, the relationship, and these are your fat steers down here. So is that profit? Well, there was plenty of profit all through here. Your regular markup, whatever it is, 20, 25, 30%. Doesn't matter if you're selling hammers or dresses, you got a markup on what you're selling. Over here, when we saw the relationship split, this is extra gravy. If you guys are like me and you overfilled your plate on Thanksgiving Day, and then you knew that you wanted gravy on top of everything, sometimes the gravy would leak over the side. This is the gravy leaking over the side for your packers. What caused this? Well, it happened, it got in here about 2019. We started seeing these black swan events. And you go, oh no, he's going to start talking about stuff like that. I don't even know. A black swan event is just as simple as something that happens that affects the market in a big way, and it had nothing to do fundamentally with the market. It's just something that happened nobody could foresee. So the big first black swan event that caused that relationship to go awry was your plant fire at Tyson Fresh Meats in Holton, Kansas. Everybody remembers that, right? It was just about 4 years ago. So you remember that plant fire. What happened after that plant fire? Box beef cutout values shot up. Why? Because everybody that knows about how the cattle industry works, the beef industry works, knows we produce about as much beef as what we can slaughter. And we slaughter that, and then we, as a country, eat about 80% of it, and about 20% of it we export. And so, everything works real good. It's like a wagon wheel, but whenever you have a spoke break in the wagon wheel, all of a sudden it doesn't work very good. Well, this would be a broken spoke. This plant harvested 6,500 cattle a day. Now we've got a problem. We're backed up on cattle. We got too many cattle. We can't get them all processed. Oh my gosh, then they're not going to need as many to feed. Oh my gosh. So all of your cattle markets suffered, but your beef market did not. Because your wholesale buyers, your end user says, oh my gosh, they had a big plant fire in that beef plant. Not going to be as much beef out there. We better get some box. So they start buying it up. Well, your choice boxes go up $20 a hundred. You think, well, that was unfortunate. But then you start looking at the conspiracy theories. And I don't know how many of you conspiracy theorists are out here. Do we still call them conspiracy theories if they all come true? I'm not going to ask you about your politics, but it seems in the last 5 years or so, there was a lot of conspiracy theories, and they all came true. Makes you scratch your head. Well, I'm going to give you some conspiracy theories, and they all came true, about this plant farm. So the first one is, so every feedlot manager in southwest Kansas, and I've talked to a jillion of them, they will all tell you, since they showed up at that feedlot to work or manage that feedlot, they talked to a Tyson buyer every week from mid to late week. They either come by the feedlot, or they saw him at the sale barn, or they saw him at the coffee shop, or at this time they were texting. He would text them or call on their cell phone or something. They were in contact with their Tyson buyer every single week up until that week. So what day did that plant fire happen? It happened on a Friday evening. They had no Saturday slaughter scheduled, and it was after their Friday slaughter. Very convenient that it happened then. So they didn't speak to their Tyson buyer that week. It was almost as if that Tyson buyer knew that he wasn't going to be needing any cattle for the following week. That's kind of a weird conspiracy theory there that's true. Another conspiracy theory is, how many of you people have ever toured one of these modern plants like this? A lot of you have. And what are they made out of? Concrete and steel, for the most part. Both of which are damn hard to burn. So I always say, you could come back here with a 24-foot gooseneck filled with 12-year-old boys, and each of them got their own box of matches, and they would have never got that place to catch on fire. But conveniently, after all their slaughter was done, after all the cattle were cleaned up, and then a weekend ahead of them, somehow, even though those plants are kind of damp, there was a spark, and we had a fire. Poof! Big fire of concrete and steel. Unbelievable. So what about another conspiracy theory is talking to my friend, Greg, who's Charlie. You know when I talked to Charlie. And Charlie said, hey, my neighbor's son, he's probably 25 or 30 years old. He lived up in Omaha. And he said, my neighbor's son got called out. He works for one of the biggest electrical contractors in the Midwest. And he got called out to go down to where that plant was. So it sounds like that the fire was caught in the utility room where the breakers come in, and it ruined all of that. And they were going to have to rip out all the old electrical and replumb that whole plant with new electrical. Well, that's interesting. So a week later, I called my friend back up and I said, what about that boy they sent down there to that plant fire? And they said, oh, he's been back home for days. I said, I thought you said they had to replumb that whole plant with it. He said they sent the best guys from all over the Midwest down there to do that. He said they got down there, they had that whole place cleaned out. You couldn't even tell that there had been a fire there. And they had all the help and all the equipment and everything, and they just replumbed that whole thing for electrical. And I said, well, how long did it look like it was going to be before that plant was going to be reopened? And he said, it looked like they could start any time when he left. But that plant did not reopen for 6 months. Why did they not reopen that plant for 6 months? Well, they were selling their boxed beef better with the plant shut down. The world thought that the packing industry was running at 100% efficiency, so they didn't think we could slaughter any more cattle. But every week after this plant fire, our nationwide slaughter was bigger than it was with that plant open. So all the other ones just turned it up a little bit more. Your packers were making more money. Why would they open that thing? Well, they could slaughter more. But that plant was one of the first ones that was built down there. whenever we saw your packing plants move from your stockyard areas out west. And even though it had automation, it needed to be upgraded. It needed to be renovated. It needed to be remodeled. The rails were set for 11 and 1,200 pound cattle instead of 15 and 1,600 pound cattle. They needed more stainless steel in there. They needed to upgrade the coolers. They needed to put in new hot skills. They needed to do all these things. Well, if they needed to do all those things, why did they not do that before? Because they had a union contract with all the union workers that worked in that plant, and all those union workers are promised 50 weeks a year employment, 40 hours a week. They can't afford to shut that plant down because they can't afford to pay all those workers to sit at home and not be working. But if you have a fire, you got insurance to take care of that. So the insurance will pay all those workers to sit at home. They could act like they couldn't open that plant. They can send people in there and get that plant. When they reopened that plant, it was like brand spanking new. Insurance paid most of the expenses to have it shut down. They were making more money over here because of the fire scare and all that. How does that make you feel about that black swan event? What was our next black swan event? That was just a couple of years ago. So we had the Wuhan flu. And we're not sure, and still they won't even tell us whether that Wuhan flu started from a leak in a Chinese lab, or maybe it started down the street at the wet market where you had Chinese people eating their rats and bats medium rare instead of medium well. Well, I guess it doesn't matter, but I think we all kind of know right now, don't we? That's another conspiracy theory that's pretty well come true. They're not ever really going to come out and tell us the truth about it, but I think we all know. But whenever Wuhan flu come along, or COVID, you thought $20 a hundred, you thought $20 a hundred was a bunch for box beef cutout values? Holy cow. How about $200 per hundred? The $20 a hundred was just a drop in the bucket. $200 a hundred. At this area right up here, your packers were profiting, not gross, they were profiting over $2,500 per head or per carcass. And you guys in the beef business, right? How much did y'all give them? Nothing. Cattle markets were steady and weak through this. Then you say, well, but they couldn't keep production up. I'll grant you that. They could not keep production up because we had this, which it was an epidemic, but it was even worse than that in your packing houses. Why was everybody in your packing houses coming down with COVID at such a higher rate than everybody else? Was it because they were working, and they were side by side, they ended up putting all this stuff in the computer and all that? No. If you live, which I live very close to Amarillo, if you lived in Amarillo, Texas, or Greeley, Colorado, or Liberal, Kansas, Dodge City, Kansas, if you live in cities like that, you know why it is. Because during these peak weeks of COVID, you could not get near a city park on Sundays because all the workers in those plants were having COVID parties. You'd have to walk for blocks to park. They were all drinking out of the same glass. Grown men kissing each other open mouthed with fat tongues. Anything that they could do to catch the COVID. Anybody will tell you this. It's absolutely true. Which, and for the most part, your Hispanic community is the main ones that work You know, and back in the old days, it was the European immigrants, but now it's more of your Spanish heritage people that work in these packing plants. They are not stupid. They love parks anyway. And so they're at the park having COVID parties because they know Monday morning when they walk in and they prick their finger or they stick their swab up their nose and they come down positive with COVID, 3 weeks paid vacation. Fantastic. I can handle a 3-week paid vacation with a little drippy nose. That's why they had such a big deal on COVID. And granted, they weren't able to keep the production as high. But what did they do when they couldn't keep production high? They just kept gouging and gouging and gouging whenever you saw housewives fighting over a pound of hamburger meat. So you saw that. But that's what they did. And that's kind of the way the packing industry treats your cattle people. I'm going to stop that. Okay, so you're thinking, oh my God, look at all that stuff there. Well, I told you that the title of this presentation was the Packers Playbook. This is your Packers Playbook. This was printed or posted on a website called Ag Center, which is posted down based down there where I live in the Texas Panhandle. They put out market reports there. It's done by very reputable people that are active in the industry that know what's going on. And they said that this came into their hands from a Packer buyer. I don't know whether it blew off the dash of his pickup or what, but somehow or another they come up with this. Now, mainstream ag media will tell you that this was just a bunch of crap. No, he just come up with this. I don't really care. Just the fact that it's in print and we can read it and that we know is what happens, that is enough for me. So I'm just going to read this with you. So don't worry about how busy this is. So this is a packer telling his country buyers what to do. This is his instruction. It's a packer's playbook. Purchasing standards and protocols are changing to mostly late week and in many cases late Friday purchases. Now this was just this past summer. And you guys, if you pay attention to the fact trade, you know that. This change requires immediate conversation, or what is it? I can't read it. Modifications, thank you. You must be good at the Wheel of Fortune. Immediate modifications to our buy instructions. Well, if you talk to anybody in the business, the only people that talk like that are packers, are buy instructions, okay? And notice they even capitalize the word buy. Okay, please follow these guidelines, sharing nothing on this buy sheet with anyone outside the organization. Under no conditions can any corporate identification be associated with these instructions. Okay, don't let this fall in the wrong hands where it might get posted and then some guy might be giving a presentation to a bunch of cattle people in Missouri somewhere. Okay. This is the big one. Base price. A base price of $1, $2, and $3 over the base is no big deal. That's nothing. If you need to do that to get the cattle bought, do it. You got good cattle, give them $1 over, $2 over, $3 over, because the base price is everything. The base price is what? That's the weighted average of your cash sales. So 1, 2, or 3 over is nothing. If you need to do that, go ahead and do it. The primary objective is locating the lowest quality cattle in the trade area and making the purchase live FOB the feed yard. That's what the base price is based off of, is live FOB. The packers send the truck to your feed yard, load the cattle, and that's live FOB. It's called free on board for some reason that I don't know, but it means picked up. So that's what you want to do if you're a country buyer. Your boss wants you to find the lowest quality cattle in your trade area and make your purchase live FOB. Assuring that the transaction is reported to the USDA mandatory price reporting. The packers are abusing mandatory price reporting in this way. Now it says incremental purchases. If no more cattle are available at the base price, if you can't get any more bought for that, do not raise the prices for live FOB cattle, because this will increase our base price. We don't want to increase the base price. We want to keep it as low as we can. Remember I said, what does it take to manipulate that base price because it's so small? And then all the rest of the cattle are sold off of it. All your formula purchases have to start somewhere, and they start with that base price. Do not raise the price for live FOB cattle to make more purchases. Seek out one of the following purchase formats to fill out your buy. Okay, so what are the 3 ways that we can buy cattle if we can't get any more bought at the low base price? We could buy cattle at delivered prices. That doesn't go into your base price. That doesn't make up your weighted averages, delivered prices, because there's no way for the market to assess the distance from your feed yard to the reported sale of the plant. So delivered prices do not go into your weighted average. Buy cattle at flat beef prices. Buy cattle on a grid with the base price negotiated or determined by the cash market. If the base is negotiated, keep the base price low, and then we will adjust the grid to compensate the producer. Right? We can do whatever we want to because we buy them on a grid. We can adjust whatever we need to. The base for negotiated grid cattle will not enter the cash sales bucket. Won't affect your base price. And the third one is buy cattle with conditional requirements, such as guaranteed carcass yields or quality. You can basically put anything in there, any kind of stipulation. These cattle got to dress at least 63%. Well, any stipulation you put in there puts them into a formula trade, and they don't affect your weighted average or your base price. They only want to reserve the base price for the lowest quality cattle. By cattle conditions, these transactions will not enter reports as formula trade. And this is the one, if you're not already mad in the face, because you know how it's affected you if you feed cattle or have fed cattle, or your neighbor, or if you're selling calves and yearlings, and the fat cattle price is not high enough for those buyers to give more for your calves and yearlings. Check out the last part of this Packer playbook. It's about messaging. It is important to send messages out into the trade. Sellers are always fearful of the market turning downward, right? Some examples to discuss with your feed yards during your weekly conversations are: beef demand is poor, and the heat is retarding sales. I told you this was back in the heat. The heat is retarding sales at the retail level, in addition to slowdowns at the restaurants. Ooh, Packer mentality. Woo. We don't need your cattle. Market's going to hell. You better take what we're offering. Processing losses are mounting, and the management is ordering slaughter reductions. This will get worse week by week, building up the supplies in our nation's feed yards. Exports are declining and set for a further decline due to high prices in the U.S. China and other trade partners are purchasing cattle in Brazil and Australia. A recession is hanging in the horizon, and consumers will not be able to afford beef. What do you think about the Packers playbook? that something? Now, I want to show you something else. Yeah, I'm just over 50 years old, and the more I learn about everything that I do, the more I think that everything is crooked. Okay, you look at major ag media. You know, you guys laughed when we talked about conspiracy theories. Do we feel like mainstream media tells us what they want us to know and what they want to feed us, and they direct our mindset by telling us what they want us to know? How about major ag media? Okay, this is Drovers. Forever, they've been major ag media. Drovers magazine and Drovers website. After the Packers playbook came out, and it came out on that website, and then I talked about it on my report, several other people that are independent talked about it on their report, and then Drovers comes out with this. They say, cowboy conspiracy theorists get catfished. They think that somebody went in and made that up, which we all agree was written just like a pattern. And like I said, I don't care whether it was real or not. The fact that it was bold and they put it out there in public and everybody saw it, and it was a sure thing that it affected the trade out there. But why would Drovers do this? And why would our mainstream ag media try to drive us one way or the other? You guys ever open up cattle magazines and it has full-page ads in there that says, eat beef, it's good? Why would they do that? Why would they waste the money advertising in cattle magazines? We pretty much like it. Why don't you spend that money in Times Square or in Cosmopolitan or somewhere like that where it does good? You're preaching to the choir here. They still have to pay for those pages. Why would they waste the money? It's hush money. If you're running a big mainstream ag media magazine or website or whatever, and you're getting most of your advertising dollars from the beef checkoff, which is run by NCBA, well, you're not going to start printing stories that they're not in favor of. They'll give you a little call. I didn't like that story very well you put out there. I like this one a lot better. See if you can put that one. And the reason that I know for sure is what this happens is we got a letter, not at Feeder Flash, not at my address, but at DV Auctions head address. They got an official letter from NCBA, Beef Checkoff, Washington, D.C. office, and they said, we believe that your Feeder Flash program is reaching producers that we have trouble reaching. And we have considerable amounts of money in our advertising budget, and we would like to contribute to you. When's the last time that, let's say you need a Christmas tree, and you stop at the Christmas tree lot, and you tell the Boy Scout guy, I've got considerable funds that I could use to buy a Christmas tree. Now let's negotiate on a price. I couldn't believe that it said considerable funds. They wanted us to put a little beef checkoff in the corner of the Feeder Flash. I said, well, that would be one way to get rid of all my listeners. What I've been telling you guys is it's less than 1% of this country's population that does this kind of stuff. Less than 1. You know, they say 2. Well, for sure, less than half of our production ag people are in the cattle business. So it's less than 1%. Yet, whenever I put this slide up and you guys looked at all the things that you see on that slide, you're good with, right? All the things you see there, they seem comfortable to you. Give you an at-ease feeling. You're kind of looking at it and saying, yeah, well, I do all that stuff. 99% of the country does not want to do all that stuff. They may think they want to, but they don't do it. Because sometimes it's cold and sometimes it's hot, and it's hard work and it's risky, and all of those things. But we love it, don't we? How many of you love it? You wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. And your kids love it, and you want them to love it. And I don't know if you guys watch Yellowstone, but whenever the Kevin Costner's little grandson said, "Why do we do this, Grandpa?" He says, "It's a hell of a life. We love it." Nobody would raise cattle if they didn't love it. It's a piss poor investment. You gotta love it. So, but what about over here? Oh, nobody loves that. That sucks. And I always say at this time in the presentation, we all love the novel and the miniseries Lonesome Dove. I mean, it's one of my favorites. Every time it snows big, you gotta sit down and recline and take in the whole Lonesome Dove series. But Lonesome Dove would not have been nearly as popular if Captain Hall and old Gus had been running a confinement hog operation. It's just not as romantic. You don't get to ride horses, cool cowboy stuff. You hardly ever run into any saloon girls or any of that kind of stuff. It sucks. Day in, day out, running that confinement hog operation. But a lot of people used to feed hogs. I love being in this part of the country. How many of you people used to feed hogs? Wow. How many of you used to feed hogs, or your dad or your uncle used to feed hogs? The overwhelming majority. Why do we not feed hogs anymore? They took it away from us. They just took it away. It was a way that agricultural people could make a living, and they absolutely took it away from us. Who's they? Your pork processors. We talk about the packers all the time, and we just assume we're talking about beef packers. What about your pork packers? They took independent cattle feed or hog feeding away from us in the late 90s. They absolutely just took it away. Why? Because it's more profitable without independent hog feeders. They wanted to take it over. They didn't want price transparency. They did not want to have to put a price out every day. Because their reasoning is, if we own or have contracted all the hogs, if we own the processing facilities, and we own all the pork, whose business is it what any of that stuff is worth at any of those levels? And they did not want to share that information. They didn't want to have to put out a price. But as long as they had independent hog feeders, or they needed independent hog feeders to supply them with product, then they had to put out a price. So they decided that they didn't want to do that anymore. So, the only people that you see raising hogs anymore are show pig people. My daughters, I just got one left showing, but my daughters show pigs. I go to the pig shows, and when I go to the pig shows, I see red pigs and spotted pigs and black and white pigs and all kinds of pigs. We didn't see that when we were feeding them. The pork processors told us what we had to feed. And they all had to be Yorkshires or Yorkshire crosses. They were all related to each other, and they all weighed within ounces of each other when we got done, right? Because they told us that that's what they wanted. They told you that you had to be a level 3 producer or they could not buy your hogs anymore. People used to feed hogs on dirt, and they fed hogs in the woods. And for the most part, the hogs were a lot healthier when they fed them on dirt, right? But they said, no, you got to be a level 3 producer, or we can't buy. We'd like to buy them, but we just can't. What do you mean you can't? They said they couldn't. So, level 3 producer, you got to feed your hogs on slat or on concrete. Why were they doing all these things to us as hog feeders? Because they were getting us all down here, crowded up, headed down a narrow way. So it would be that much easier for them to take the entire industry away from us. Do you guys see that at all in the cattle industry? Do all the cattle have to be black? No. If you're raising feeders, they sell a little better, so most people are doing that. But does it feel like maybe we're getting herded down a narrow way? They still need us, but barely. Barely. So, I'm a former USDA market news guy. In the mid-1990s, they told us, we're not going to report the Omaha hog market anymore. And as market reporters, we went, what? That's the first thing I give on my radio broadcast every day. That's the only thing anybody ever calls us for, is the Omaha hog market. All the hogs in the world traded off the Omaha hog market. That kid has got some serious problems. That kid thinks that fly swatter is to kill flies with, I guarantee you. But the Omaha hog market was, that was a holy grail. And they said, we're not going to put it out anymore. And we're like, what are you talking about? You can't not put out the Omaha hog market. And so we stopped reporting the Omaha hog market. And man, did people get mad. Woo! Little small locker plants and stuff like that, people that sold hogs in the country, man, they were mad. Why did we not do that? Where's the Omaha hog market? Well, I don't know. We don't put it out anymore. What do you mean? You know what it is. Tell me what it is. We don't do that anymore. Why did we not report the Omaha hog market anymore? Because at the Omaha stockyards, they could not scrape together one load of bears and goats. Because it got so small, they could not do it. People were selling them in the country buying points and stuff like that. Everybody was contracted up. Basically like the cattle are getting to be now, where they're all formulas. Everybody was contracted up. So, we did that. So, in 1998, your pork processors just decided, hey, we don't need these independent hog feeders anymore. Let's just get rid of them. We got plenty of hogs. We've got them all contracted. We've got them bought. We own them ourselves. We don't need them anymore. And so they said, we're just going to rub them all out. How'd they do it? Yes, $8 hogs. All of a sudden, in 1998, they took your hog market to 8 cents a pound. Poof, no more independent hog feeders. Cost of production was in the low 30s. Everybody went broke. They didn't go broke over amount of time. They went broke now. Absolutely broke. You know a lot of them. You might be one of them. They took that industry completely away from us. They could do it with this industry. We got more reasons for concern here. What is this right here? That is the logo for Impossible Meats Fake Meat Company. Impossible Meats Fake Meat Company has a mission statement. What is that mission statement? To eliminate farm animals from protein production. Ouch. That's bold. Eliminate farm animals from protein production. So, if that is your mission statement, why do you use a steer for your logo? Why do you dress that steer in drag just to piss us off? That's exactly why they do it. It's exactly why they do it. And I took both undergraduate and graduate advertising and marketing classes. You take the bull by the horn. You're not going, maybe, to make this man eat fake meat, but you can cram it down his throat to where he gets used to it. He accepts the fact that it's there. That's what they're doing to us right now. So they're cramming down their throat. They're losing their butts on this stuff. All the money that's been put into the research and development has been lost, but they're not going to stop. And the bad thing is the only product we've really seen commercially is the plant-based fake meat. And it's terrible. It's basically just mashed up peas with a bunch of salt and liquid smoke on it. But this cell culture stuff that's coming where they can take a bottle of blood from a prize Angus and they can grow it in a petri dish, and then of course they add growth promotants and antibiotics to it. I thought those healthy people didn't want growth promotants and antibiotics. Well, if you're growing your stuff in petri dishes in the lab, you cannot do it without growth promotants and antibiotics. I mean, they can put you out of business in one day, right? So, they're doing that. But they're cramming this stuff down our throat to the point that you guys remember the Impossible Whopper commercials, right? You guys remember that? I have never eaten at Burger King since, and I never will, because they were putting that out there so strong, Impossible Whopper. And you had some people that were mad because the real Whopper grease was leaking over into their Impossible fake hamburger, and they were afraid they were going to get some real meat on it. God. But you guys remember those commercials? One of the most popular commercials that they had for the Impossible Whopper was a guy sitting in Burger King, and he had a pretty decent looking cowboy hat on. He had a plaid shirt on, and he kind of looked the part. And you know, they were showing him on there, and he grabbed that Impossible Whopper and took a big old bite out of it, and it was so delicious, he just stepped back and said, "I'm a damn fool." And what they were really saying is, he was saying, "I'm a damn fool because I'm in the cattle business, because I produce beef." It was a huge slap in the face to all of us. And then when I found out who that guy was, that's what was really the slap in the face. So they made that guy. Where'd that guy come from? Usually, Hollywood doesn't make him look as authentic as that guy looked. That guy was Luke Branquino's brother. You may not know who Luke Branquino is, but he's a many times world champion bulldogger in pro rodeo. And he and his brother were raised on a 4th generation beef ranch in California. So they picked him out. They sent a management company to find someone like him to do it. Why? To rub our nose in it. That is the people that's behind this stuff, guys. And you got to educate people about it. It's bad stuff. Gosh, so what can we do? We can stop being idiots. You say, well, that's kind of insulting. Yeah. What's the definition of an idiot? Somebody that does the same thing over and over and over again and expects a different outcome. We've got to be more flexible. How many of you, let's not say how many of you people, how many of you people know somebody that sells their calves the exact same week every year? I'm not going to ask you which ones actually do it. I'm just going to say, if you know somebody that does it, everybody does it. Everybody got such a kick out of the other day. I was talking to the guys at Clarinda, Iowa, and whenever that sale barn changed hands, he wanted to have a sale on a Tuesday, and previous to that, the previous owner had always had his special feeder cattle sales on Thursday, and he was like, well, there's some other sales on Thursday. We want to get out of their way and have it on Tuesday. But when he started talking to the big producers that always sold cattle there, he said, well, when are you thinking about coming? He said, we sell that Thursday. And he said, no, the sale's on Tuesday. No, I sell that Thursday. It became evident to him that he needed to have a sale on Thursday. Because that's what he wanted to sell. Because everybody gets into a habit, that's what they want to do. If everybody on your lane or dirt road is turning their bulls out the same week, how smart is that? It's not very smart. We do a good job of it in Missouri, but a lot of places don't. We need more fall calving. We got to have more fall calving. The big ranches out west, they don't fall calve near enough. Of course, a lot of them will tell you, well, we summer at elevation and all this kind of stuff. Not everybody does. We need more fall calving. 75% of the beef calves born in the United States are born the first half of the year, which leaves only 25% to be born the second half of the year. Who does that benefit? The packers. Especially after they come out with cryo backing, when they suck all the air out of those meat cuts and they throw them in the freezer, and then they bring them out when they're horse born. Similar to the big corporate grain elevators. That benefits them. Our cattle infrastructure will not stand for 75% of our product to come out at the same time of the year. We don't have enough bunk space, we don't have enough hook space, and we damn sure don't have enough trucks to haul them on. So we got to do that. And then what else? Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. Your leader at Missouri Cattlemen's Association, Mike Deering, worked very hard with this. I worked very hard on this. I'm fairly active with U.S. Cattlemen's Association, and they work hard on this. The Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act is basically loitering in Washington, D.C. because they won't put it up for a vote unless they know they have enough votes to make it pass. But we do have 20 senators, U.S. senators, that have signed on to the bill, about half Republican and about half Democrat, which makes it bipartisan, and you'd think they would want to do it. But Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, what would it do? Establish minimum levels of fed cattle purchases through approved pricing mechanisms. Basically a mandate forcing packers to purchase a minimum amount of cattle through negotiated means. And you think, well, how can we make them do that? They all abuse and they all price their cattle off that weighted average. They should have to participate in that weighted average if they want to do so. That's what freaks everybody out. So much that NCBA passed a law in their organization that outlaws mandates, basically just to try to kill this bill. It would institute the Cattle Contract Library, which we have a pilot program on that, but it does not have a law behind it. So if we don't do something, that would go away. It will improve transparency of boxed beef reporting. We're wondering why boxed beef isn't selling better now. It's because your packers tell us exactly what they want us to know in that report. Most all of their sales are way out front and through formula means. So they can tell us on the little draft of what they do that the market's not very good, and the futures goes down the limit for 3 days in a row. Expedite the reporting of cattle carcass weights. And the big one is the last one, and nobody really talks about that, but it would require packers to report the number of cattle scheduled for delivery within the next 14 days to their plant. That would be pretty good information, wouldn't it? To know how short bought they are. You think, well, how can we force them to tell us all the cattle that are scheduled to show up at their plant? Why do we have to tell them how many cattle we got on feed every month? And then watch the board crash and the market go down. We need something on our side. Your NCBA, which has control of your checkoff dollars, fights this bill in Washington, D.C. every single day with your money. They got lobbyists that's their only job, is to make sure that this never passes. Why do they not want it to pass? Because all of your big feeders that control NCBA are in bed with the packers, and they want it to stay there. Got to talk a little bit about DB auction, because that's pays the biggest part of my bills. So you know that we broadcast sales, mostly bull sales, but a lot of commercial sale barn sales. And let's say we do a little over 100 a week, and every lot that goes through there, we get the head count, the weight, the class, and eventually the price of them. And if you do that all day, every day in all those sale barns, that is a ton of market information. And we have been storing that away in a database for about 12 years. And that's one of the reasons that I went to work for DB Auction, is because they came to me and asked if I had an idea of what we could do with that information. And I said, well, yeah, you can put out a market report similar to the ones that I put out for 18 years with USDA. It can have receipts, head counts, weight ranges, average weights, and average prices. We can use that to put together an index value that mimics the CME index, but it's about a day and a half quicker, so it can give you an idea of what's fixing to happen there. We can use it to come out with market boards like this one that you've seen in sale barns around the state that contribute to our database. And when these are on, they've got scrolling ticker tape type deals that go across just like Fox News and ESPN. And it tells you the streams of cattle that have sold in sale barns all over the United States and some in Canada. And we can have that information up on this board all over the world before they get those cattle pinned back after they sold. We think these are marketing tools that help producers make better decisions. And of course, I do a feeder flash 5 days a week, every business day morning. A lot of you people watch it, some of you don't. If you haven't watched it, looking for a place to get it, you go to nationalbeefwire.com. We have an electronic newsletter you can subscribe to that's free. You can get on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all kinds of places, and you can get a daily version of what you just heard. I appreciate you guys listening. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, if anybody has any burning questions, I think we got time for maybe one or two of them, if anybody wants to shout one out. That's always good enough. Hey, I want to thank you for coming back to Missouri. Safe travels as you go south. Hopefully the roads get a little warmer as you go. Yeah.
So I have I guess it's kind of a life story. You talked about the packer consolidation, and I believe that all of the consolidation actually started in the milk production side back in the 1970s. DFA came in and they bought up all the little cheese plants and put all of the small milk producers out of business. Now we are faced with 2,000 to 2,500 and larger dairies. And so you talked about the Holcomb Fire. I personally had a load of fat steers ready to go when that plant caught fire. And the buyer told me, well, we would try to get them in. The plant caught fire. I ended up holding the steers for another month. And I finally just took the price they gave me because I was tired of feeding them. Why do our politicians allow JBS, which is a foreign-owned company, to operate in this country? If they're making money, how come an American company can't do the same thing? So, against my better judgment, we bought Holstein bottle calves and we fed them out all the way to market. Tyson quit killing steers, Holsteins. We had to truck them to Green Bay and to Michigan to get them killed. Truck bill was over $2,000. COVID hit, and we ended up with 300 feeder pigs given to us. And we went from 0 pigs on our farm to being the largest outside pig finisher in North Missouri. We were able to sell over half of those pigs through private butchery. When we got down and the hogs were getting big, we got down to the tail end. I called JBS in a tumble and I said, hey, I've got a potload of pigs I need to get rid of. And so the buyer said, okay, I'll see where we're at. He called me back and he said, well, we're 2 weeks out. And I said, that's fine, as long as I know I can get rid of them. And he said, well, that's not the whole story. He said, we can't buy your pigs because we have overflow pigs from our big customers that are our regular customers, so we cannot buy your pigs. And I said, and so that's how it works in the United States. And he said, well, unfortunately it is. And, well, we ended up getting rid of the pigs, and that was the deal. But anyway, that's part of my life story.
Well, it sounds like you've lived much of what I've been talking about here. But, that is the sad part. And when you started talking about the dairy, that's one thing that I didn't talk about tonight is the dairy industry didn't get out in front of the fake dairy products. When they started coming along, your dairy industry was laughing it off and saying, well, I would like to see them milk at home, and I'd like to see that, and people joked about it. And now your fake dairy industry has a 15 to 20% margin of their business, and nobody's laughing anymore. And I don't think we could stand that as beef producers or cattle producers. We could not stand that. We got to get out in front of this stuff.
We have no dairies left in our county.
No, they're all down in my country. And they turn the sprinklers on and they never turn them on. And they don't pay the trucker and they don't pay the feed bills. And now they've gotten to where they've got companies and people that will give them the most expensive beef cattle, beef bull semen there is to breed to the bottom 2/3 of the herd, and then pay them $685 for a day old half-blood calf. Put them in the feedlot, it overwhelms our cattle on feed and kills our beef more. It's very frustrating. I appreciate your comments.
You forgot the rest of that story. After they did kill your cattle after the plant fire and they had a bunch of heavyweights, they docked you $300 a head. I lived that story too. I also had cattle that were ready to move on to that plant. So, all right, I think we're going to wrap it up for this evening. Again, put your hands together and thank Corbin for coming. We'll say congratulations again to Dr. Mike Wilt. Doc, are we going to see you tomorrow? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're coming back tomorrow. Door swing at 8 a.m. Educational program start at 9. We've got your cell lunch at noon. I hope everybody comes. We'd like to get some photos of Dr. Wilt and family if he's still here. I want to thank everybody for coming to see me.
Well, from our area, I lived it, and you know, what's funny is that whenever DFA was buying up the small cheese plants, and then the small producers started selling out, the guys that milked 100 cows, they thought it was funny. Well, the little guy can't make it. Well, you know what? Now those people that milked 100, they're selling out.